All right, hello everybody, and welcome into the College Football Playoff Committee meeting. We're coming off of the heels of a ridiculous game day. 10 conference championship games, 8 were outright victories, 1 no cover, and 1 cover on the day. So we have auto bids now. So this is going to be a little bit different than your traditional committee meeting if you've been here before. We're going to do a full ranking of the top 25. Our conference champions that are getting auto bids into the playoff are not going to be just seeded 1 through 10. They have to be ranked though. So we already know 10 of our ranks. We just have to go through, and then we want to decide the best top 25, and then once we do that, then we'll talk about the format, and we'll talk about seeding and all of that kind of stuff. So that'll be a little later. So first and foremost, who do we want to make the number 1 team in the nation? I haven't sim forward yet. So I think probably it should be a conference champion. So I think there's really 2 options. You could go Oklahoma or you could go Cincinnati. What do you think?
I'm going to suggest something wild. We have a chance to make history here, boys. Wyoming number 1.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say that just because I'm here. Just because I'm just rub salt in the wound.
You did make history.
None of these other teams have made history.
And
it's not history. It's against Brett Brooks. Come on.
Well, you will be going to the playoff, but I don't think number 1. I think it's pretty clear. Number 1, we probably got to reward Oklahoma.
Yeah, I would probably say just because overall, compared to what was the other team?
I mean Cincinnati. So I think we gotta go with the conference champion.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Cincinnati's 1 seed. I would probably give Oklahoma the 1 seed, give them the curse.
Well, so we're just talking about ranking right now, but yeah, they struggled in this game. They blew everybody else out. So I think Oklahoma winning in Bedlam and now winning their championship game, probably best that they go number 1. So
yeah.
So Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 2 is now a little sorry for my cough. Is now a little interesting because Auburn didn't play a game this week. So they are 10-2. If we look at they have a win over UNC, but they lost to Tennessee. You could go the route of going with Tennessee, who just lost, and putting them number 2. They lost to Florida. They lost to Georgia Southern. They did beat USC, who's a conference champion, Texas, and just a 2-point loss. We could go with... I don't think you'd want to go Oklahoma State here. They are 2 losses in a row. And then I think probably the only other team you would consider here is Cincinnati. Or potentially going with UNC, who just took a loss to Florida State. Now remember, we're ranking the top 25 here, not necessarily the playoff yet. So playoff rankings are different. That'll be after our top 25.
Okay.
So we got to decide who we think the second best. So Rick just put RPI rankings for consideration. Let me open this.
To be honest, I know you feel different about them, but I've always been a UNC truther, and their only 2 losses were to Auburn and FSU, who are both now top 10 teams. So they have to be heavily considered, in my opinion.
Yes, but now that they lost, you've got UNC, who's 11-2, and then you got Auburn, who's 10-2. Do you have to consider that head-to-head? And it's a decisive head-to-head, 33 points.
What's Auburn's schedule?
And then they have a win over.
I see Auburn's schedule. That would probably tilt me, just because I know the ACC's wasn't the greatest scheduling this year.
So
at least
if you want to look at common opponent, Georgia Tech, they lost by a point. UNC beat them. They lost to Tennessee on the road, and then they haven't lost since. They won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in a row, beating Florida, really the only good team here.
Yeah. If it was me,
Rick's power rankings have Auburn at 3, and UNC at 14.
14.
But I don't know how much you want to
I
consider this.
I'm probably not going to consider it just because if we
It
look
would
back,
percentage.
yeah, like I've for me, it's so tough just
The
because yeah,
strength
they
of
went on a win streak, but it was all like 6, 7, 5 win teams, you know. Besides the one win against Florida, which is pretty good, but
yeah, the strength of schedule is pretty similar to 0.51,
yeah,
0.56. So I mean, if it's similar, you probably have to consider head to head. So I'm fine putting UNC ahead of them.
yeah, I would probably say so.
Okay. Is there anybody else you'd want to consider at 2? I mean,
Uh, not
Tennessee
really.
lost. Florida State's a champ. Yeah.
Florida State maybe, but I don't. I think they lost some like a bad game.
I just want to look at Cincinnati. I mean, it was a weird win. They lost to Navy. Best other wins is what? Hawaii, Army, and that's really it. And then they beat Charlotte.
If we're considering the 7 win threshold that we do for bowls now, it's like what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4 quality wins. You know,
Yeah,
like I know
one
there's some
extra
6 and
game.
6s in there, but like if we're gonna go off the 7 win standard that we've been setting for automatic bowl games, I feel like I would probably still consider
Okay.
UNC over them. So
So would you want to go UNC? Should we go UNC 3?
yeah, UNC either.
So UNC beat UTSA, beat NC State, beat Georgia Tech, beat ECU. I mean, that's 4 quality wins as well. I would like those wins are better for sure.
My I think just the losses like are just better too because
Yeah.
now with these new rankings that we're gonna do, I feel like FSU is gonna be a top 10 team. So
Okay. Yeah, okay. North Carolina 3. Okay.
we lost 5. It's just us two.
That's all right. Okay, Florida State, they're 10-3. I wouldn't consider them up here. So Cincinnati, I'd probably put around here. Maybe a Tennessee up here too. Tennessee's 10-3, very close loss. They do have the win over Auburn. They also beat USC. They also beat Texas.
Yeah, and the loss of Oklahoma was only to 2 points. That Georgia Southern loss is the thing that's getting me.
Yeah, okay. So let's see if we have anybody else. Pac-12, not going to really consider USC here.
Yeah, there's not many teams we can
CMU,
consider.
I'm not going to consider them way towards the top because
Uh,
they're not nearly as good of a schedule.
wow,
as
yeah, their strength is horrific. Oh my god.
Yeah, not even close. So that's why they're so down. Big Ten, I mean, gotta drop Michigan a little bit. Minnesota, doubt they climb up to around this range. Only other team probably you could consider is like an Oklahoma State. Or you can start considering Georgia Tech and Baylor. But Oklahoma State, 2 straight losses, 3 of their last 5.
Yeah, but I've liked them slightly under Oklahoma just for the fact that that game was played so close.
Yeah.
You know, and we're not splitting hairs, we're splitting straws at this point just because it's such a big drop off for like the elite teams to the really good teams. So
If I consider Georgia Tech, they lost to Minnesota. They beat ND, beat Florida, beat UNC. 2 big wins in a row. I wouldn't put them 4 because then you probably got to put them over North Carolina. Okay, so for 4, would you want to go? Should we go Cincinnati or should we go Tennessee here for 4? I'm fine only
That's
dropping
tough.
Tennessee one spot after that really
Yeah,
close loss.
yeah. Since Oklahoma went up 2, Tennessee going down 1 isn't the worst choice. So I'd be fine with
Yeah,
that.
Tennessee. And then you're going with Cincinnati. They go from 6 to 5. They really struggled against Charlotte, but I think that's okay.
It's more or less just we've seen it before with the Baylor game though. Like if keeping it close, Cincinnati has proved, especially in this past year and the year before that, that they can win close games, and that was the biggest mark on McNasty that we had before. So
Yeah. Okay. Do you have this RPI thing open? Or can you open it?
yeah, hold on.
Because I
Okay.
think this is interesting because Rick is able to give you like the tier 1 wins, tier 2 wins, right? So
Yeah.
resume ranks. So RPI, I don't know what the difference between like an RPI rank or like the resume rank is.
I think RPI is just his ranking,
Okay.
and then the resume rank is like
Sort
if you compare
by
all of them.
resume rank. It's not letting me sort it, so I'm going to see if he can sort it by resume rank so we can look at it here. Okay, so it has pretty similar to us. Oklahoma, Auburn. It has Georgia Tech. It really likes Georgia Tech here. I think this is a point where we could start considering the Georgia Techs, the Baylors of the world. I do want to reward conference championships, obviously. So we've already ranked Cincy, and we have already ranked Oklahoma. I think the next teams that you could probably consider ranking is Coastal and Florida State now. So I think those are all teams. So here's Florida State, the loss to Georgia Tech. So if you're, I feel like a conference championship probably trumps head to head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
The loss
yeah,
to
even they.
Miami is bad.
Yeah, but it was in overtime too.
Yeah.
So
Minnesota's
what?
not going to be ranked up here, so. Okay. Notre Dame's good. Florida's good, and if we're comparing Florida here, who's a 3-loss team, got to put them over Florida. I mean, it's a at Florida game.
I think with the conference champions getting involved, I don't think Florida makes it in.
Well, I'm just talking about ranking.
Yeah.
Okay, so now Georgia Tech, they win at Auburn. They lost to Baylor by like 1 point. They beat Florida State, lost to UNC, and lost to East Carolina. So, really losing to really good teams except for Auburn and Florida State. Okay, we're just going to peek at the resumes. Oklahoma State is probably in this tier. Best wins are at Kansas. They did beat East Carolina, and they did beat Baylor, 2 teams that Georgia Tech couldn't beat. So, like, common opponents, I think that's probably really impactful between those 2 teams. But then, obviously, 2 straight losses. Baylor here, 9-3. They beat Georgia Tech. They beat the #1 team in the country. Lost to OK State, and then they lost to Iowa State and Texas A&M, who's not terrible.
Yeah, they're. Yeah. They're all close losses, though.
Yeah, everything's kind of
Looks of it.
close here. Want to look at, like, Michigan. Oh, my God, I left the screen, bro.
Just like Brett Brooks isn't showing up.
All right, Michigan. Lost to Georgia, lost to Indiana. That one's bad.
Yeah, I don't think.
Michigan State,
No,
Iowa.
yeah, no bueno for me.
Not right now.
That loss to Indiana was so horrific that you can't put them in the top 12, in my opinion.
Wyoming, no, we're not ranking. USC, they were 15. Lost to Tennessee. The loss to Indiana, or Notre Dame. They did beat Oregon twice. Beat Stanford, who's 9-3. But the loss to ASU is kind of weird. SEC, here's Florida. They beat Tennessee, beat LSU, lost to Auburn, lost to Florida State.
Yeah, I would probably consider Florida over them. So
Texas, lost to Florida, lost to Oklahoma.
it's weird. You have like a circle of suck with the SEC,
Yeah.
where like they beat up on each other. So it's kind of hard to.
And where's Coastal? Coastal's 11-2. Okay, so their best wins: UCF. They lost to UTSA, beat Southern Miss twice, and lost to Charlotte. So I don't think that. I think that they are probably going to move into the top 10 here, but I don't think they're in this tier. Okay, so out of the teams we saw, I would probably reward Florida State here.
Yeah, I would agree.
Conference champion, I mean, they beat our number 3 team. Okay, it's Florida State, conference champion. And then I think then the common opponents between Georgia Tech and Oklahoma State would trump Georgia Tech here, and they have an additional win. The only other team to consider here would be Baylor, who lost to Oklahoma State. They did beat Georgia Tech, but do you have to put Baylor above Georgia Tech here? They're both 9-3. I think you probably potentially have to.
Yeah. Oh, hold on a sec.
So the question is, do you go... So make sure I don't miss anybody. Florida, I think, is below. Where were my rankings? Let me go back to those.
Sorry, I'm back.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, where are we?
We're at number 7.
7, okay. What do we have so far? I'll write it down.
Yeah, so we have Oklahoma, Auburn. Hold on. Where's my rankings, bro? Oh my gosh. Can't find my rankings. There we go.
Fumbling like he's Brett Brooks.
Yep. Okay. So we have Oklahoma, Auburn, North Carolina, Tennessee, Cincinnati, Florida State. I think you go Oklahoma State here.
Yeah,
And
it's rough just because they went on the skid, but it's still pretty quality wins, even though they went on a little bit of a skid. Like,
okay. Yeah.
it's still an elite team. I just go back to Bedlam. I mean, I feel like that was a really formidable, response, like against the number 1 team in the nation now. Like, I feel like that's really good.
Yeah, and then I think you just filter that right behind them. I think you just go with the Baylor, Georgia Tech, and you got to consider the head-to-head.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, Baylor, Georgia Tech.
All I'm saying is Mushbrain cooked when he said Schwartz was coach of the year. I didn't believe it until...
Yeah, he had a great... definitely had a great...
Oh, look who's here.
Who's joining?
Literal Dogwater.
Oh, nice. Dogwater, are you going to participate?
Nah, it's like most things he likes to watch. So.
Maybe. I don't know yet.
Okay. So we're at 10. I think probably best team on the boards that's left to consider is we have like the Michigans, we have Florida, Coastal, and then you get into like the USC, LSU, Texas kind of quadrant, and Central Michigan.
Yeah, we got the 2 at-larges, right? Or do we only get 1 at-large? Because I know we got Auburn in there.
So we're just doing a top 25 ranking. Don't worry
Yeah.
about the playoff yet.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Now,
Yeah.
okay.
Don't worry about playoff right now. It's gonna be different because Rick wants top 25, and I don't want to have like a 6-6 UTSA at 10. You know what I mean? So
Die.
we have to rank them, but we don't have to
Okay.
be in the top 12 or whatever. So we'll deal with the playoff here in a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So number 10, I would probably reward Coastal. Or it's kind of, do you want to go like Coastal or do you want to go like Florida? It's kind of where we are.
Florida, Texas A&M quality loss.
They beat Tennessee.
Beating Tennessee is actually kind of huge. I would actually probably consider
Lost to
Florida.
Auburn, lost to Florida State. Yeah.
Yeah, I would consider Florida at 10.
So my rankings last week, I put them over LSU because they beat them head to head. They both lost to A&M, Texas.
South Carolina went
lost.
0-12. Oh my god.
Yeah. Other team to consider, though, now that we have conference championships, we could consider USC ahead of these teams, who has an additional win. They lost to Tennessee, so probably put Florida above USC here. Lost to Notre Dame. They beat Oregon twice. It's not an amazing win, 8-5, and then Stanford's the best win for them.
Yeah, I'm not on the USC hype train.
Okay.
Like, I'm just not. I don't even think Oregon's debatably not even ranked in my
Southern
opinion.
Miss, beating them twice. The loss to UTSA is a conference champion, and then the other loss to Charlotte isn't as bad as I thought it was last week because Charlotte put up a big time fight against Cincy.
This is so stupid, by the way. How dare you how dare we make Coastal have a quality loss? What the fuck?
So the reason we say that is the way I'm doing it, and TC agreed, is that
Well, bowl eligible is quality loss.
bowl eligible, but like we're
always
doing
said that.
7 wins. We're not doing 6. We're doing 7 where it's like a
But, yeah.
guaranteed bowl.
But it's
That to us
not
is a quality
like-
loss.
It's not like this Indiana loss for Michigan, who we should probably consider. I mean, they beat
4-8,
Minnesota, then they
jeez.
lost to them, right? And then BYU's another win. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't rank Michigan in this tier. Probably drop them a little bit.
Yeah.
I
wouldn't. Well, did that. I don't know if I agreed completely. How heavy are you trying to drop them?
Well, right now we're at 10. And
never mind. Yeah.
And they
Never
were
mind. Never mind. Keep going.
7. Yeah. So I think right here we have to decide: do we want to do Florida, Coastal, or USC? I think you have to put Florida
Coastal
over USC. I'm fine elevating Coastal up here.
I personally like them.
Yeah, I would say so.
Coastal has aura. So do we want to just rattle those 3 off? We do.
You're the only person I know that thinks Coastal has aura.
Yeah, I would do Florida then USC, right?
Yeah, and then Florida at 11.
Yeah.
Where is Coastal? 10?
Coastal at 10.
Yeah, okay. I would agree.
And USC at 12. Because they have the conference championship pretty much for the most part.
Win.
Okay. So now this is where we'd probably consider Michigan, LSU, Texas, Central Michigan is now.
Can I see Texas' schedule? I feel like we haven't seen Texas since like the middle of the season.
Because Texas has a terrible resume.
Oh,
UCF, lost LSU, then their next
overtime.
best win, their best
Is that
win
Ole
is
Miss?
at A&M and UCF. That's Oklahoma.
That's Ole Miss, right?
Mm.
Oklahoma is the loss, and then at Miss is a win in overtime. Ole Miss.
Okay.
And then LSU does have a better resume than them. They have the win head to head. They have the win versus Tulane is, I guess,
Close
what
game with
sets them
Oklahoma,
apart.
dude.
Yeah,
You have to put LSU here. You have to.
I would say LSU and Texas because of the head-to-head, but I feel like LSU is way better. Just that and
Yeah.
LSU just has a better schedule,
I
especially
think
with the
you go-
overtime loss.
Yeah, I think you go LSU over Texas, but do you put Michigan over LSU or either or? I'd probably put Michigan over Texas, though. I don't know if they go
Well,
above LSU.
actually, I would, all
Syracuse.
right, so I would actually put Michigan above them all because Michigan actually did make their conference championship and none of the others did.
That's
So,
true, and they already beat Minnesota. So,
yeah, I would give it to them.
Mm, yeah, that's good reasoning. I'm just not that Indiana loss is like leaving a sour taste in my mouth. Pause, but like like I'm just not
Yeah,
a
but it's
big fan
just
of that.
that's why
at
they
what
dropped.
point,
I mean,
Yeah,
I just feel like we have to stay consistent with not rewarding teams for not playing.
LSU, Texas. Okay, so if we go Michigan, LSU, Texas, then we have 16, and I think this is where you kind of have to put Central Michigan because they're 12-1. I put them 17 last time. The only other team I would consider here, Southern Miss, is dropping down the board after their loss.
yeah. And for me personally, when it comes to Central Michigan, yeah, they have that one loss, and their strength of schedule is like not good whatsoever. But the one thing I'll say is that I feel like if we look at their schedule, they're beating teams by like blowouts last time I checked. I could be completely wrong, but like it seems like they were beating the teams that they were supposed to beat.
Yeah, I mean, their only loss was week 1 against a Cal team. But
And
that's
yeah, and that's a
still
quality
like,
loss, 7 wins. I
yeah.
would,
At ULL, I mean, these aren't like like this isn't like Cincinnati level blowout, but we're in the mid top 25, right? So they beat Ball State. That was a big. They beat EMU. That was a comeback. They won their conference championship. They're in the playoff. I think 16 is fair.
That's fair.
this is where
That's
we blend in the eye test, and why Kel Summers is just that good of a quarterback that I think that's a really respectable ranking.
And then, okay, so now we're at 17. We still have to rank 1, 2, 3, 4 more conference champions. I feel like Southern Miss should be ranked here, or in this area. I feel like we need to rank,
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
I feel like we need to rank BYU. Out probably need to rank East Carolina. And so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2 additional spots. Okay, so do we go Iowa State here? I feel like they're the best conference champion remaining. Our conference champs remaining is Iowa State at 8-5, Minnesota at 9-4, UTSA 7-6, and Wyoming at 9-4. But Iowa State has those crazy wins. They have at Oklahoma State. They beat them twice, and they beat Baylor. So two teams in our top 8.
Me personally, I would make
Dude.
Wyoming the worst team in the country. But when it comes to Iowa State, it's just the fact that their wins sort of mask their losses. Like their wins are just so big. Like being Oklahoma State twice and Baylor once is something that is really impressive, especially with how highly ranked both of them are.
And this is a team that you'd probably say is like, they're like the South Carolina IRL right now. Like the hottest team in the country, right? They've rattled
Oh, so
off
we should put them like
6
right
straight
outside the
wins.
playoffs. We should put them like outside the playoff looking in.
That's
Okay,
so wild.
got it.
Look at
Got
that
it.
fucking losing streak, and then they just rattle them. Oh my god.
So I think 17 is a good spot.
And
for them.
it's not the worst losses. I mean, yeah,
No.
but like
No, they're all
there's
close.
all close games. Like it's congrats to Schwartz because I Mushbrain mentioning him as coach of the year, like I said,
I would have Southern Miss
surprised that
Yeah,
I
I would.
completely blanked on that.
Yeah, I would not drop Southern Miss probably anymore.
there. Yeah, no, that's plenty.
And then I would put probably BYU right after them. BYU's 19 last week. BYU's a team that just doesn't. They didn't win the games they're supposed to. They have the Iowa State quality win, but they lost to Duke in OT. That's a tough one. And then they lost the game they had to win against Michigan.
Yeah. If you could argue maybe a little better if they beat Duke, because then their only loss would be to Michigan, who is a ranked team, but like that loss was very costly.
Yeah, so I think 19's fair for them. Okay, so
Shout out Coach Ron.
So now we're at 20. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spots. We have to rank Wyoming, Minnesota, and UTSA. I think Minnesota probably here because they're a conference championship of a Power 5. 9-4, yeah.
I mean, we don't have to rank Wyoming. Let's be honest. But like,
So,
anyways.
I mean, and they beat Florida State. That's their best win, along with Michigan. We rank Florida State 6 right now.
They lost.
That was a great
Wisconsin
win on
lost.
the road.
Yeah, Wisconsin lost. Nebraska lost.
Yep.
I mean, only other L was Michigan and Fresno. Fresno State's, in my opinion, best 9-3 team in the Mountain West. Like, besides Wyoming, they're easily the best team. So that's still a really quality win too. So I would agree.
All right. So we'll put Minnesota.
Yeah, there's a drop off after like the first 5 teams.
Yeah. All right. So Minnesota, and then, so Wyoming and UTSA. I don't think. I mean, we have 3 other slots to rank. I think you need to rank East Carolina. They're 8-4, yeah, but they have some of these quality losses. The loss to Clemson's not good, but they have the win over Georgia Tech. Miami's not great either. We don't have to rank them. Let's just go through and see if there's anybody we've kind of missed.
Is there, so in all seriousness, with no slander, like, do we have to rank the conference champions? Like, is that what we're gonna do? Okay. So if that wasn't the case, I would argue that Wyoming UTSA can you can manage it to where like the playoff can just put in unranked like teams, but like if we have to rank them to put them into the playoff, that's completely fine. I just don't think their schedules are that good, especially Wyoming. They've lost very bad games.
Isn't good.
We're gonna rank them. So Notre Dame has the win over USC. Close loss to FSU. The Buffalo loss in OT's tough. Okay. So ECU, I think ECU and Notre Dame are rankable. I had them ranked last week. I think we might want to consider still ranking Charlotte, even though they lost, because it was a really good showing. Win versus Coastal is huge, but they don't have any other wins really.
Their only L's were to Ohio State and San Diego State, both quality losses. So
yeah,
I'm fine arguing. Not arguing. Ranking Charlotte like top 20-ish.
I don't know if we
top like 22 to 20.
I don't think so.
No, I would unrank them.
Don't think you rank anybody else in the MAC. Mountain West, I think you rank only Wyoming and then maybe Fresno State because they have the Minnesota win. They lost in OT to Georgia Tech.
Even when he loses, K-Nelly wins.
I would probably rank Fresno.
Yeah, which is crazy.
But behind Wyoming, because Wyoming's the conference champ, and they beat Fresno head-to-head. So, okay, Stanford, I don't think should be ranked. They only have a win over Oregon.
Yeah, you don't even have to convince me. Yeah, just we'll throw Stanford to the pile. Oh, not at all. Oregon's
rank any of these teams.
Oregon was like the biggest dropper.
I mean, South Carolina, we could rank South Carolina.
I was gonna say South Carolina strength of schedule. My goodness.
So we have UTSA, Wyoming, and then 3 teams, and I think it's pretty much obvious it should be Fresno State, probably ECU, and Notre Dame as those final ones. Let me just look at Rick's resume, see who has like a big time resume that's not. So Fresno State, according to Rick, has the 18th best resume. Texas A&M 7-5 though. I don't think we should rank 7-5.
Is it 18th best? No, it's 16th best. You're looking at.
Did ECU beat Georgia Tech or something?
You were looking at the number of the team, but
Tulane, Miami. Yeah, no, I don't think those teams.
TC did ECU beat Georgia Tech?
Yes, ECU did.
Okay, never mind. Okay.
So they lost.
Go ahead. As the Mountain West representative, do we want to put Wyoming and Fresno at like the back end of the ranking? Just because I feel like teams like ECU are better. Like I put like Fresno 25, Wyoming like 24.
I would probably let's look at it. We gotta decide who's better, UTSA or Wyoming. If there's a case to be made.
I mean, there kind of is a case.
1.
There's kind of a case they beat Coastal.
Lost to Southern Miss. Lost to LA Tech. That's not great. They
Hmm.
did beat Coastal. Lost to Tulane.
Okay,
Lost
well,
to
it's
Louisiana.
it's
Lost
kind
to
of getting worse for you,
Maryland.
Dogwater. Oh my god.
Well, beat Tulane though, so they made up for that loss. And
But
beat
again,
USX, but
we can
only
both agree
two.
that
Two
we
ranked
can
wins.
agree that Tulane just isn't like a ranked team
Yeah.
anymore. So like we can temper our
Wyoming,
expectations from that point.
Fresno,
Two ranked wins.
Army.
Losing to Air Force is crazy.
3 wins, 4 wins. Get the fuck out of here.
All right. I think
I,
Wyoming is higher than UTSA for me.
I
in terms
wouldn't
of-
agree,
That
in
is
my opinion.
crazy.
I wouldn't agree.
according to Resume ranks from Rick, Wyoming's 34, UTSA's 38. So
I
Yeah, but they
know,
lost
but
to
I
a
feel like
3-win team,
this.
a 4-win
Dog-
team. Like what the fuck?
yes, your
listen
strength
here.
of schedule is better, 85 and 63
Yeah,
compared to
and
71, 74. But you got to
you have to-
consider,
No, like the reason why I'm saying that is as someone who's in the Mountain West, like the ratings dramatically drop, and losing to a team like Air Force is worse than you think. Like in any other conference, that's an 0-12 team. Like we have to consider the Mountain West
that's
drop
true.
off.
Toledo's
You know?
ass cheeks as well. Okay.
Like I think
No
UTSA
signature win.
UTSA it's close, but the statement win against Coastal, I feel like that pushes them ahead.
That's the other thing. Why don't think does Wyoming have a signature win? I didn't see it. I just
Me.
Fresno State
Just
and
me.
UNLV.
Just
Fresno
me.
State and UNLV.
It's not a quality win
Who
against
we're
me, bro.
ranking, but Coastal's number 10. That is the better win. You also have the win over Tulane, which rectified. You also were competitive. You got to remember, competitiveness is a thing that these aren't losing by 50. They're all like 10-point losses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
okay.
to
I'm
like
fine with it.
benefit for Dogwater, like he was on BearCave in game day a lot. Like he was in the forefront of the sim. Like it
Okay.
I was
wasn't just
fighting for my life.
like yeah,
So-
he was like struggling to like breathe at that point, you know.
Okay, did Notre Dame and ECU play each other?
Yes.
Dame, no, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think between these two teams, you go with who was a better win, and I think you go East Carolina is a better win against Georgia Tech than USC is for
Yeah,
Notre Dame.
and they only lost to Oklahoma State by 13, which is
Yeah.
not too quick, and I think that's fine. I'm fine with putting
Up here.
Edwin's rank.
Wait, did we want to rank Charlotte instead of East
Um,
Carolina
Or
or
they lost.
No, but like still, there's. I know it wasn't the strongest schedule, but like they
they
were
also
still
beat
pretty good.
Coastal? That's a better
beat
win
Coastal.
than Notre
Okay.
Dame's.
If we're
So
ever
I
going to
think
UTSA,
I
though,
don't
I
know. They got
absolutely agree.
murdered by Ohio State though,
that is a murder. But they're really
and San
competitive
Diego
against
State killed
Cincy.
them.
So okay, so we're comparing Charlotte and Notre Dame for the last ranked spot in terms of
I think Notre Dame
and-
clears that.
It would probably be Notre Dame just because
No.
the strength of the opponents, and
I mean,
just a better
BC,
conference.
SDSU are similar. Buffalo 6 and
Yeah, they
6. 4 and
beat the
8
shit out of
Virginia is
USC.
bad. The 4 and 8 Virginia, that loss is not good.
I mean, but we could also toss that up as a week 1 opener, like
On
struggle
terms
game.
of resume, they have Charlotte and Notre Dame at 30 and 31. Charlotte just barely ahead. If you want to talk about strength of schedule, it's incredibly even, but you would actually give Charlotte a harder schedule.
Yeah,
So
I think
it's
just
kind
off
of
a conference prestige by itself, I would still go Notre Dame over Charlotte.
okay. All right,
I just think it's close, but like if we're gonna, like draw hairs, I would probably just. It's a more elite conference for Notre Dame, and I feel like they also losing to FSU by 3 is still pretty impressive, even though they have a couple weird losses in there. So
They have some really good wins, though. That's my thing about Notre Dame. I just like the fact that they have like some really. They have the signature win. I mean, they beat the shit out of USC. So
Okay, so I'm going to go back through our top 25 and shout out something if you don't like it or not. I just want to make sure I have all 10 conference champs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Who am I missing? 1, 2, 3, 5.
Did you put in Wyoming?
7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I have 10. Okay, so we have Oklahoma 1, Auburn 2, UNC 3, Tennessee 4, Cincinnati 5, 6 Florida State, Oklahoma State 7, Baylor 8, 9 Georgia Tech, 10 Coastal Carolina, 11 Florida, 12 USC, 13 Michigan, 14 LSU, 15 Texas, 16 Central Michigan, 17 Iowa State, 18 Southern Miss, 19 BYU, 20 Minnesota, 21 East Carolina, 22 Notre Dame, 23 UTSA, 24 Wyoming, and 25 Fresno State.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so now we got to talk about the playoff, okay? So 12 versus 14 is the format we got to decide on. Now, I don't know. I would be more, it's kind of like, if you listen to the Patreon podcast episodes, like we got to decide, do we want to put supreme emphasis on conference championships? Because, one, nobody won theirs. That's like a favorite. So, like, you got to get the auto bid. You don't win your game. You can't really gripe if you're not in the playoff, right? But on the same spot, if you go 14, then you still get 4 teams in anyways.
Yeah, I'm just a big fan. I've screamed this from the rooftop since I mentioned it on my podcast. I'm a fan of the 12 team just because it really emphasizes conference championships and it's different from IRL college football. I understand that like this is a scenario why you would consider 14 teams just because a lot of upsets happened that weren't planned for. But at the same time, I feel like emphasizing conference prestige going forward for like future seasons is completely fine with me.
Yeah, I think, and I think one thing that the IRL committee is doing incorrectly is like they're
ranking
putting,
them enough.
well, yeah, well, whatever, but like
Shut up, Hunter.
but like the conference championships, they're not a center focus at all. Like, sure, it gets you a bye, and you get like into the playoff. Like, there's a couple of scenarios with the lower conferences, but like you're having teams like not want to play in their conference championships and just hope for a bye, right? I mean, I feel like more at larges emphasizes less eliteness, if that makes sense. So like,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
to think about
I'm
it, like
personally
we were
with
splitting hairs
it.
trying to find who had the least like bad loss when it
Yeah.
comes to like teams who are in the lower half. And while there are teams that should if we did go to a 14 team playoff, like Texas, LSU, like that could be on the good get in if it was a 14 team. I'd rather emphasize conference championships just because it gets more people involved in the SFA as well.
And I like 12 teams because, one, you get to keep more bowl games, and 2, you get 4 buys instead of just 2. I think 4 buys is really impactful because home field is so difficult. So I think
Speaking of home, no, I'm kidding.
I think we should, speaking of home field, 20 or 15% off. So I think we should proceed forward with 12 unless
Yeah.
we look at this and we look at the at-larges and we're like, we have to put them in. But I don't.
Yeah, see, my thing
Now
is
I
though,
don't-
just like with the 12 team, it still keeps it to where the conference championships still matter, like basically the
Yeah.
most, because that's 10 out of like you only have 2 remaining seeds at that point, and that to me that's gonna leave it up to the most elite teams possible.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like this thing is like I said it in the Twitch chat. It's like a wild card playoff game. It's just another
Most
playoff round, in my
deserving
opinion.
And most deserving and the best teams, basically. So, okay. So, let's move forward here. So, remember, one difference from us and the real life is home teams, or one, buys can only be conference champions, and home teams can only be conference champions because we have 10 teams. There'll be plenty. So, that means 2 conference champions have to go on the road, and it's going to be determined by our rankings. So, and we might have to adjust our rankings so depending on the quadrants, right, to make sure we don't have like rematches and stuff. So let's just go one by one. So the number 1 overall seed, let me just make my bracket here. 8, 9. And we down here we have, this is number 4. This is 5 and 12. And then over here we have 3. We have 7 and 10. And then we have 3 and 6 and 11. Okay, so the number 1 team is OU. They're an SEC champ. And so remember our bowl games. We've got Cotton, Fiesta, Sugar, and the Peach in those quarterfinals. So that means Oklahoma. This would be the Cotton Bowl,
Yes.
and that means I think we've done this before, but is the Orange Bowl or is the Rose Bowl closer to Oklahoma?
Oh,
I believe Orange Bowl is
we
closer.
got into a big fight of this last time. Hold on.
It's the Orange Bowl.
Let's see. Distance, Rose Bowl. So this is 1,300 miles. Orange Bowl to Norman, Oklahoma. Distance.
Yeah.
Where's
Sugar's
the Orange Bowl? It's Miami?
Yes.
So
And
that's
just it sounds like it's
1,500
from
miles.
Miami. Yeah.
That's-
Hard Rock Stadium.
So that's 1,500 miles driving distance versus 1,300 miles driving distance for Rose Bowl. So the Rose Bowl would be on the left side of the bracket.
Well, you just get shafted either way, I guess.
Yeah.
I go with whatever's closest though.
Okay, so now the number 2 overall seed, based on our rankings, is going to be Cincinnati, being the number 2 seed at their 12-1. So being the second highest rated conference champion at number 5. Okay, number 3 would be Florida State
Okay.
as the ACC champion, and then number 4, also getting a first round bye, would be Coastal. So remember, having these conference champions get buys, those are your 4 buys. So you'd have a 10-3 Florida State, then you'd have 11-2 Coastal getting the last bye. So now number 5, once again, home teams are conference champions, right? So number 5 would then be USC.
Woo!
Number 6 would be Central Michigan. Number 7 would be Iowa State. And then number 8, getting the final home game, would be Minnesota.
I don't know how the seeding would work when it comes to
that's the
matchups,
seeding.
but no. I'm just saying
Okay.
the Breckenridge Revenge game is right there. So if that was ever possible,
So, I mean, that depends. Would you want to put Minnesota all the way up at 16 instead of...
just for
think
cinema
it's possible.
purposes, for cinema purposes, just to get him in there. But if it's
Oh,
not possible without
Wyoming
flipping the
you're
entire
talking
rankings, yeah, the Breckenridge Revenge game.
We'll see. We gotta continue it because that's actually probably not possible. We'll see. Okay, because now at 9, this is where you determine your at-larges. And by our rankings, the 2 at-large teams would be Auburn and North Carolina.
Interesting. Okay.
Those are our top 2 at-large teams who we have ranked number 2 and 3 behind Oklahoma. We have Tennessee as the first team out, and Oklahoma State would be the second team out.
I 100% think that North Carolina should be in. I mean, they were number 1 all year long. I mean,
And to be
Florida
honest,
State's also a really good
if it wasn't for the play of the year by that Florida State defensive back, they win that game. If it wasn't for the most Herculean effort I've ever seen from a cornerback, that's easily they win that game. That's a walk-off touchdown.
And Auburn,
I mean, that was probably
we put
the
them at
greatest
2.
defensive play in Florida State SFA history.
We put them at 2 because they have that win, the head-to-head direct line against UNC. So that's why we ranked them above them. They lost to Tennessee, which I don't think you can consider. I mean, you can consider if you want. It's a 3-team race.
I'm completely fine with putting Auburn above that other team that you talked about. Why am I drawing a blank? UNC. Yeah, just because of the head-to-head. Just because they similar resumes, but like Auburn still has a quality, very good quality win, but only the quality losses are to like Tennessee and like what was the other one? Well, it's like a really high-ranked one. So
Yeah, and so this is kind of where we gotta potentially flip around the seeding. Actually, I don't think so. I mean, Auburn would be our 9 seed. So Auburn would face Minnesota in the first round, and then winner would face Oklahoma. I think SEC on SEC is fine because remember, there's only 2 SEC teams. Like, you'd like them not to be in the same quadrant, but they are the best at-large team.
Also Minnesota versus that's a good matchup. Ooh.
So that's what that would be. North Carolina would have to go on the road to face Iowa State, and the winner would face Cincinnati.
Holy
That would
mid.
be pure cinema.
That's interesting.
Kirk. Wait. Oh, never mind. I thought it was Kirko's Clash
Then
Revenge game, but that
your
was
first
Tech.
round matchup would be UTSA going on the road to face Central Michigan.
Oh man. Oh man. That's a great matchup. I'm loving
And
that.
winner would face Florida State.
Oh, imagine UTSA versus Florida State.
And then your final team in, obviously, would be Wyoming. And they would go on the road to face USC. And the winner would be facing Coastal Carolina.
Oh, you see, I would say that was a beatdown, but Chris Neal. I have to give props where props is due.
So
That's
how do we feel about those rankings?
I'm fine.
I'm good with it.
The only thing I could think of is like the CMU all the way up at 6, but I don't think, like the only thing I could think of is if we flip Iowa State and Central Michigan, but I don't know, verse 7 verse
For what?
for
Specific.
the rankings. So flipping Iowa State from 17 to 16 and Central Michigan 16 to 17, that would make Iowa State play UTSA. And then
The only
Central
reason I don't
Michigan
like
face
that
UNC.
is because of the fact that Central Michigan didn't they only have like 1 loss?
Yeah, they're 12-1 versus the 8-5. So that's
Yeah, like I can't get behind that.
Are the quality wins better?
I mean,
like,
man, so it was good until now we realize Oklahoma State dropped. Like,
yeah,
for the moment being, it was great wins. Now they're sort of like,
I mean, they're still
bad. They're
2 wins.
They're still
over number
great.
7 and number 8, right? 3 top 8 wins. But yeah, I mean, if you're comparing conference champions and seeding lines, they both have home games. One's 12-1, one's 8-5. I feel like going with the 12-1 team, I think that's fair. Okay, so what this would be then is Oklahoma's in the Cotton. Cincinnati, they'd be closest. Probably is Cincinnati closer to the orange or the peach?
Orange is Miami. The
Distance
peach.
to Miami. Cincinnati distance to Miami is 1,100 miles, and then to New Orleans.
Yeah, definitely the peach.
810 miles. So Cincinnati's closer to, so they'd be in the sugar. And then Florida State would get the the peach. That's lucky for them. And then Coastal has to go all the way over to the Fiesta. Okay, and then the rose on the left side, the right side would be the orange. Okay, so that would be our top 25 and our playoff. How do you feel?
Really good.
Elite.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just some accidental great matchups. You know, I feel like overall should be pretty interesting. But
that would make. Also, remember we have tie-ins for some of our bowl games. So the Citrus Bowl is the 2 best non-playoff teams. That would be Tennessee taking on.
in LSU, right?
No, it would be Oklahoma State.
Ooh, okay. Very
Ooh.
interesting. Adam Dukes, the runner-up for the Grant Davis Award.
Then the next 2 best teams would be Baylor and Georgia Tech. So we would see if they would go to a rematch in a bowl game or if we do different matchups. I don't know. I got to figure that out. Okay. So, we feeling good? Want to lock them in?
Well, I don't feel good. I lost my conference championship
Well,
game,
you
but for
know.
this, I feel good. You know.
Okay.
Yeah, look at that, dude. UTSA outscoring the whole fucking division.
All right. Well, as always, do not leak. I will post this stuff here in a little bit. I have to sim forward, grab like the Heisman winner and all that stuff, and then I have to make the rankings and then post the rankings. So it'll
Still
take me
not
a
allowed to
couple
say
days.
I'm in the playoffs.
Hey, Dogwater, imagine not being in the playoffs. Couldn't be us, right? Imagine not
Couldn't be
winning
us,
the
dude.
championship
Yeah,
game.
you know, just
Yeah,
rub it
dude.
in. Just rub it in. Parker Towns is going to be the next great quarterback.